Get ready with me as I share a story time of how I met my man.
Let me tell you about my Lord and Savior, the one that's great, the one that's great, Lord and Savior.
Just a little small background detail, just so you can understand like the attitude behind why I was like behaving the way that I was behaving when I met him. I was married before. I was separated from my ex-husband for 2 years. We finally divorced in March of this year, 2024. I'm not going to talk too much about like what happened, why the divorce, and so on and so forth. All you need to know is that it was a biblical divorce. Let's just say I was extremely unhappy. I was traumatized. It was a mess. All of that. In 2023, I decided that I wanted to surround myself with girlfriends because I had friends prior to this. It's just that I wanted women friends who were practicing Christians. You know, we have a lot of people that say like, oh, I'm a Christian, but they don't actually practice Christianity. So I wanted like women who were, you know, practicing the faith or whatever. And this does play like into my story. Anyway, I did meet those Christian women. We hung out. And while everything was going great with my new group of friends, after I divorced, I remember leaving the courthouse and feeling like, what now? Like, what is life now? So much of my 20s and early 30s, like, oh, I want to be a wife, I want to be a mom, like spent so much of my life doing that. And it's actually one of the biggest regrets that I have in my life. So I just got home like, what now? Like, what do I do? What is my purpose? But I think it's very important as women to understand that your life is not just husband and kids. It's okay to have like other aspirations, desires. Do you want a business? Do you not want a business? Do you want to, you know, just travel? Whatever it is you want to do. And I was really just learning that my life is not only purposed to be a wife or to be a mom. Like, I'm not going to get into too much detail because I don't want the video to be like extremely long about how I was feeling during that time, and how to say that I had finally came to a point to where I was extremely content with my life. Even though I was feeling like, what now? It wasn't what now as in like, oh, my life is ruined, I'll never be a mom, I'll never be a wife again, da da da. It wasn't that kind. It was just like, okay, what can I do? Like, what, you know, what interests me now? And you know, so I was extremely, when I say no one could get inside of my bubble, I was extremely content, and I was so happy. I was so happy that I had finally gotten to a point of my life to where I wasn't yearning to be a wife or mom, or because all throughout my 20s and early 30s, I was just like, oh, I gotta have this, I gotta have it, I gotta have this family. But I can't even explain how content and happy I was. It's not to say that men were not trying to talk to me. They were, and they can testify if they ever seen this video. I was like, nope, get away from me. I don't want a relationship. Like, back up. I don't care about that stuff anymore. Like, I've even had men like try to convince me like, oh, well, you know, you can't be alone forever. And who said I couldn't? Because y'all don't know me. When I make up my mind about something, it is either impossible or extremely hard to change my mind. So, and it's not to say that I was just like, oh, I hate men, you know, whatever. It wasn't like that. I love men. I can't be one of them. I love men, okay? It wasn't like a need for me. Like, if I never got married again or had kids or whatever, like, I was fine with that. Going back to the fact that I had met women, I met them on a site called Bumble. So if you don't know, and if you're ever looking for friends, there's a site called Bumble, and it is a dating app, but it also has like a friend section on it to where you can just be there for friends, male or female. So that's how I met the women friends. Then I was like, okay, I want some male friends now, because having a male friend is just different from having a female friend. A lot of the times, like, especially if you have female friends who have kids, they're not going to be as available for you emotionally, mentally, blah blah blah, as a man would, because one, like, some testosterone around. It's just a different vibe altogether. I wasn't finding any male friends on Bumble. I just had a lot of women messaging me, which is fine, but I had already had my group of girls that I was okay with. I was like, okay, if I'm going to have a male friend, well, he definitely have to be Christian, because a lot of the times, like, the worldly men, they're going to start liking you and want to have sex and all of that stuff. So I was just like, it can't be any worldly man. I have to have a Christian man, and I have to have one that doesn't drink or smoke, because what if I want to hang out? And then I have to have one that doesn't have kids, because what if, I do want to hang out, but then he has to tend to his kids. So then I just started describing my husband pretty much at that point. I found a Christian dating site called Upward. You probably have heard of it. And I set my criteria of everything that I said. I was like, no kids. I mean, if he had one kid, I was just like, it's not that big of a deal, because again, I'm not here for dating. I'm just looking for a friend. First of all, in my profile, I put, I'm only here for friends, in bold letters, friends. I'm not looking for a relationship. Please do not message me with on no relationship stuff. I'm looking for friends only. And it wasn't even on the, like, friends with benefits, strictly friends. I want nothing to do with relationships and none of that. So I did talk to a few people on there, but we just were not vibing like that. Like, then I did meet someone else that we talked, like, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe like 2 to 3 weeks, but again, the conversation was dry. I don't really like to be on the phone. That's another thing. I'm like, how can I want a friend, but I'm so picky? Like, I don't want to be on the phone. I don't want him to have kids. He got to be Christian. Like, he got to be in this age range. Like, who am I? Then we get to my man. Everybody that messaged me, I was just like, did you read my profile? And a lot of them was like, yeah, okay, that's fine, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. Ah! There's a fly in here. I hate flies. Hold on. So fast forward to my man. He messages me, and, pretty much it's just like the same thing everybody else is saying, like, hello, how are you, whatever. And I looked at his age, and I'm like, why are you messaging an old woman like me? And he was like, you're not old, you're beautiful, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay. We have, the basic conversation. Where are you from? Do you have kids? Da, da, da. So I'm like, okay, this is the same conversation I've been having with everybody else. Like, what are we doing here? I was like, did you read my profile where it said friends only? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And the thing that I love about him so much is that he was extremely patient with me. He wasn't like, oh, you can't be single forever and women are supposed to be married and having kids and da da da. He was just like, okay. And then eventually he asked for my Snapchat, and we talked on there, but again, it wasn't going anywhere. It was just so dry. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to have to get back on there on the website, because, this isn't going anywhere, as far as he didn't ask for my number so that we can actually have a conversation. So this is dry too. On to the next. Met on a Sunday, and on Tuesday, he asked for my number, or he asked if he can call me. And I was like, sure. Like, again, what are we doing? Where is this going? So he called me, and we talked for 4 hours. 4 hours. The chemistry was just, it was crazy. I mean, we talked about kids, marriage, what we would expect, what we want our future to look like, religion, everything. But still at this point, I was just like, I don't want a relationship. Like, get away from me. Like, have y'all ever seen that meme that's like, intention was not to change my mind. His intention was just to like be like, okay, I'm here, you know, I'll be your friend, da da da. But at the same time, he made it clear that he was not on the website looking for a friend like I was, but he was still willing to be my friend. So I'm like, that's fine, as long as you know I'm not getting married again, leave me alone. What actually won me over was his patience and his consistency. So the next day, we both had to work. He was like, okay, so I go on my lunch at this time, so that's when I'm going to call you. When I tell you on the dot, his lunch was like at 12. I'm not really sure. Not 11:59, not 12:01, on the dot. He was consistent. He was patient. He didn't try to force me to, you know, see it his way as far as like, oh, I need to be in a relationship or I need to be married. His intentions being made known to me were another thing, because he was like, I'm not looking for a girlfriend. You know, I'm looking for a wife. I want to be a husband. I want to be a father. You know, just very straightforward. It wasn't any guessing. It wasn't me trying to pull that out of him. Another thing that won me over was how invested he was in me. I've never had a man like go through all of my socials and be like, oh, she's this kind of person. She has this kind of personality. This, you know, this is the kind of stuff that she's into. Like for my previous marriage, it was just kind of like, oh, I like you, you like me, you want to get married one day, yeah, okay, let's get married. I didn't even have a proposal. I didn't even have a ring. So there was so many things in my previous marriage. I didn't even have a wedding ceremony. Okay. There were so many things that I settled for in my previous marriage that I was just like, I know for sure that if I do get married again, like it has to be everything that I want it to be, and I don't want to skip anything. And let me just add that he also desires these things, and it's not just one-sided. I love just how invested he was in me, did his research. The type of questions that he asked me, it wasn't like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? Stuff like that. It was some deep questions. Like I think on the second week knowing each other, he asked me if we were to have a daughter and she came home pregnant as a teenager, like how would you handle that conversation? And I'm just like impressed and speechless, because this is deep. I've never had a man that was just like, has substance, I guess. It was very new to me and I was very intrigued. So after the vibes were vibing, I kind of jokingly but was serious at the same time. I was like, so when you gonna come see me? Because he lived in a different state. Thanks to Upwork, by the way, if you use Upwork, their filter for like distance does not work. So you may meet somebody that's like on the other side of the country. So anyway, he doesn't live in my same state. And I was just like, so when are you gonna come see me? This man booked his flight like within a week. Was not playing any games at all. So when he got here, we both were like kids. Like we were, well, I wasn't nervous, but I was excited. He was more nervous. We went on some dates, and actually this is probably going to sound crazy, but like, I want to say like the second day of him being here, we went to go, size my finger for rings, because I told him like, oh, I, you know, never had a ring. I've never been proposed to, and da da da. And he was like, well, if this is like the direction that we're going, like I want to make sure that I have your ring size for like the appropriate moment. And I just thought that that was just like so intentional, like, okay. You know, so we did that and we went out to eat. We had a good time. I showed him around the city a little bit, and it was just such a good time. No, I'm leaving out a lot of detail because I'm actually getting ready for work, so I don't have time to sit here and talk for an hour. But there's so much that I can say about him. I literally can write a book about him. Like there's so much that I can say about how we met and how we've been dating and so on and so forth. So anyway, I believe he stayed for like 4 days. And on the 4th day, I took him to this place here where you can go like watch the planes. It's like a park and it's like a lookout area. We're walking through the park and he stops me as we're walking, and he turns around and he asks me to be his girlfriend. And I said yes. Because I'm like, who am I fooling? Even exceeding everything that I've prayed for when it comes to like a spouse. So why would I say no? He goes back home. Everything was just, nothing changed. He was still consistent every single day. We, of course, faced some challenges, but they were not like red flag challenges, if that makes sense. And I may get more into detail about certain things about our relationship like in the future, but just so you can know the difference between a red flag and just like normal relationship challenges. But yeah, still to this day, extremely consistent. And the thing that I also love so much about him is that he lets me just be myself. I'm a content creator. He doesn't, like my ex-husband, for example, like would always be like, oh, I don't do that Facebook stuff. I don't want to take a picture. I don't like all that da-da-da. No, my man loves social media. Okay. And I love that because I'm a social media queen and I want to be able to like show off my relationship and show, you know, fun vacations and the things that we're doing. And he supports me, sends me ideas, and just extremely supportive, just all the way around. Just, I don't want to use the word perfect, but perfect for me. But anyway, like I said, I am getting ready for work and I do have to go now. Thank you for watching and I will see you next time. Bye.
Let me tell you about my Lord and Savior, the one that's great, the one that's great, I love